Am I the a-hole for not using my inheritance money to help my brother and his family out? Background: me 19 female and my brother 32 male became orphans 10 years ago due to an accident our parents were in. My parents had always been a bit paranoid when it came to their mortality, so they had set a plan in case they passed. They left a significant amount of money for each of us, and our childhood home was meant to be mine. They specified that we would have access to our share of the will when we turn 18, and since my brother was already old enough, he took his money and cut all contact with me. I'd lived with my grandparents ever since, but last year I finally got my share, so I decided to move into the house and use the money to pay for my studies. I'm in first year of medicine, and it is very expensive. I have estimated that when I finished medicine in 5 years, I'll have a lot of money left to continue with what I want to specialize in, and have some left. My grandparents know my plan and offered to help with my living expenses, so my inheritance becomes exclusive for my studies until I finish. I accepted, and we have been like this for a year. Now to the issue. My brother and his wife have 3 children from ages 9, 7, and 4. My brother spent his inheritance money on a house, his wedding, cars, and expensive stuff that one doesn't really need to live. My sister-in-law is a stay-at-home mom, so he was the breadwinner. My brother recently lost his job, so now their family is struggling and they need a place to stay. He contacted me to ask for us to meet up. When I arrived, he and his wife were already sat down at a restaurant. Long story short, they said that since they were going through hard times, they expected me to hand them over my house and give them a share of my inheritance so they can get back on their feet. I got pissed off since we have barely talked or visited each other since the accident, and they were just demanding me to pay for them. I told them that I wouldn't, because I already have a plan for the money and I was living on the house. They said I can move back with my grandparents, and blew off at me for being selfish. After arguing, I decided to leave, but now my cousins are saying I'm an inconsiderate a-hole and I should help family out. I really need to know if I'm in the wrong, so am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not an a-hole. He has squandered his money. He will squander yours too. Then you'll both be broke. Be responsible with your money, so at least one of you will be financially solvent. Not to mention the fact that Opie's parents died. Entire world turned upside down at 9 years old and then the brother leaves as well. Now said brother is calling Opie a selfish a-hole? Wow, you're not the a-hole, Opie. But now my cousins are saying I'm an inconsiderate a-hole and I should help family out. Tell your cousins to offer their homes instead if they actually care that much. Not the a-hole. Also, your brother should have downsized by selling off the few expensive stuff he has left to get some money than imposing on you. Honestly, the audacity. Not the a-hole. Girl, you shouldn't even be here. We got contact with you, and now expects your help? No way. I am begging you to not hand over a cent. He sounds like the type to be given a step and then suddenly take a mile. You owe him nothing. His family is not your responsibility the slightest, so do not allow him to guilt you. Biologically, you're related, but they're not family. And your brother made that decision a long time ago. People love burning bridges not realizing they'll regret it. Thank you. I'm confused as to why I cut contact in the first place, but it's been a decade and I wonder if this will help me build a relationship with him. It will not. As soon as the money's gone, he will be too. Not the a-hole. Now go get those degrees. Thank you. It'll take a lot of time and money, so I can't really afford to pay for him. Besides, if I give him money, I'll have to find another job and it's not the best option with my career choice. If you can't find a job, then so can your brother. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to accommodate my brother's kid ever again? My 17 female older brother, 32 male, has a kid, 3 male, and he treated as the pride and joy of our family because due to some fertility issues, they took 6 years of trying without success. Now that my nephew is here, his parents let him do anything he wants at everyone's expense. My mother had to remove every decoration she had around the house because my nephew used to play with it and wouldn't understand a no. Every little piece she had around the house holds sentimental value, and she had to put it away in order to keep letting my nephew be here because my brother refused to teach him some manners. I couldn't do my homework in the kitchen because my nephew would come and try to take my things because he wanted to play with them. And even when my brother and his wife hated it, I started to not let him do it, moving him aside or just fight with my brother until he came and took his child. During one of those things, my nephew broke my computer. And I made my brother pay for a new one because I refused to let my dad do it since he wasn't at fault. My brother tried to lecture me about not leaving my laptop there because I knew how his kid was. And I told him to not mess with me and to raise my nephew better, or he will be paying for things more expensive than that. My nephew also comes into my room anytime he wants, and I hate when he does that. When he was younger and I had to go to class, I would always tell my brother that my nephew wasn't allowed to come to my room ever. But he would open the door for him and let him wander around just because he could. Now I'm always telling my nephew to get out, and I usually close the door, but he cries and screams all the time. I had enough, so I told my brother to stop expecting me to accommodate this child. If I let my Switch, my laptop, or any of my things around the house, I expect them to be where I left them. Because this is my house, and I should be comfortable in my own house knowing that my stuff won't get damaged. And if my nephew does something to them, he has to pay. Always. And that he was a crappy father for refusing to raise him well. Not day home. Swap out your doorknob for one with a key lock. Lock it when you leave. I had to do this as a teen to keep my thieving sister out. My son acted better at 2, and he was redirected as often as it was necessary. Yes, when you have little visitors over a lot, you make some concessions and move things up higher until they're a little older. But you should not give in to 3-year-old terrorists just because they have lazy parents. Not day home. If this child is the pride and joy of the family, then his parents should raise him to be that. It takes work. Sounds like his parents are lazy. They call it spoiled for a reason, because you ruined the child for his future success. If you don't give a child consistent consequences for bad behavior, they will never learn any self-discipline, and that is disastrous. I realize you can't slap their hands anymore, but that is what we used to do when children touched things they weren't supposed to. It worked. Now it's more work. You have to physically move them away. Give them something else they are allowed to have, give them time out, and reward for good behavior. Tell your brother to quit being so lazy. He's not doing his son or himself any favors. Next thing you know, he'll get kicked out of nursery school because he doesn't know how to listen. Then kindergarten. Then other kids' families won't want him over to play. That's exactly what my dad has tried to tell them, but they won't listen. My sister-in-law is a stay-at-home mom, and they spend a lot of time in our house because my mom loves to have my nephew around. But she just mostly sits with her phone and expects us to look after him. Most of the time, my nephew will be doing something he's not allowed to do in front of her, with my mom telling him no and she won't lift a finger. I know that 3-year-old tends to be all over everything, but my point is that they won't teach him not to do it. My brother especially tends to let him around my stuff or my room just because he knows it pisses me off. My parents usually go easy on him because he took so long to have a kid and is trying to enjoy him. But my nephew has thrown awful tantrums in public, and they both think it isn't something serious. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister she should have been more reasonable with her baby registry and not expected to get everything for the baby from it? To start, my dad's side of the family isn't really supportive of wedding/baby showers. Papa's side is very much, if you can't afford to raise a baby, don't have one. There are of course exceptions for things like sudden job loss or house fires. Mama's side is a little more lenient, but they don't do registries. Instead, if you have a bridal shower, your mom tells people if you're doing the kitchen in apples or grapes or bats or whatever. And if you're doing a baby shower, people bring clothes, diapers, books, and other little things. It's meant to be more of a party than a gift-giving thing. We're far more likely to have 8 cousins show up each with a casserole or soup after the baby is born than to have people buy a stroller. Mom's side isn't relevant since we haven't seen her since we were kids. I don't know my brother-in-law's side of the family well, but they seem a lot like Mama's with a lot more offers of hand-me-downs thrown in. Well, my sister moved off to the city, and I guess she's used to her friends making these huge registries. She put things on like a $60 bathtub, 4 baby carriers that are $50 each, a pack-and-play for $250, etc. She then made this big post on Facebook saying that they had worked really hard on the registry and didn't want anything not from it unless it was clothes. On the invitation, she requested a baby book instead of a card and a pack of diapers. So at the baby shower, probably 80% of the gifts were a couple of outfits, a book, and diapers. The few other things were mostly from her friends. Mom bought a car seat. You could see my sister's rage slowly building. She ended up leaving early. She spent the next week calling and texting everybody, trying to figure out why we didn't get her anything she wanted. She made a few posts on Facebook, and one of my brother-in-law's aunts offered to buy a $70 pack and play instead, which she turned down. Now my sister is upset and has been aggravating everyone for 3 weeks. She is having to buy all 6 baby containers, swing, sit-me-up floor seats, etc. she wanted, the $300 baby monitor, etc. And everybody's telling her that that's what you do when you have a kid, that you can't expect people to buy everything. Last night, after trying to be patient for over an hour, I snapped. Look, the health department would have mailed you birth control for free. You're having a baby, so it's you guys' job to get the stuff for it, nobody else's. In a way, I'm feeling kind of guilty because she probably wanted to vent. But at the same time, how do you get pregnant and not expect to buy the stuff for the baby? Edit. Someone pointed out that I wasn't clear about my sister's financial situation or whether or not the back and play was going to be used instead of crib due to constraints. She and her husband live in a townhouse. It has a second bedroom which is being turned into a nursery. There was a crib on the registry that does not convert to a larger size. Edit 2. Mom is our stepmom. Dad remarried when we were teens. She's always seen us as her kids, and we've always called her mom. I didn't even think to clarify. Sorry for the confusion. Edit 3. She opened the gifts at the shower, and the clothes ranged from newborn to 18 months. The diaper table was full of things from newborn through size 4. I don't know if that's relevant to anything, but a lot of people seem to think we only got her newborn sizes. Now for the comments. She doesn't need a $60 bathtub. Sinks exist. 4 carriers? Is she going to theme them to what the baby is wearing? She was highly excessive in her asking. Sure, you could have been a little kinder in your wording and just said she can't expect everyone to buy her every single item. But she's the one who is asking people to spend tons of money when she doesn't need all those items. Plus, to turn down a pack and play because it's not the exact $250 she wanted? How rude. Baby doesn't need a $250 one. A $70 would have worked the exact same way. She's expecting everyone else to finance a designer baby and harassing people when they don't want to. Do not buy her anything. I'm giving birth this Thursday, and we are fairly wealthy. I bought most of the baby stuff on Facebook Marketplace and kept my list to the essentials. Yeah, sinks exist, and there are even anti-slip mats you can buy for $10 to make it more comfy for your baby. I got 6 newborn onesies. We have no idea what his size will be. As soon as he's out, we will get more stuff. I don't get people making the whole having a baby about the material of things. They just need and love, not a $5,000 nursery. Babies don't care. Not today, home. Suggest that she add a freaking clue to her registry, and people might be willing to chip in and buy her that. Not today, home. Also, maybe it's the culture clash, US to UK, but am I the only one here who finds gift registry tacky? Like if you throw something like a baby shower or wedding, it's to celebrate the important events in your life with the people you love. And if you can't afford it and are relying on guests' gifts to make up the deficit, don't throw it. Gifts should be at the discretion of the invitees and not mandatory, a gesture or token of appreciation. Giving people a list of pre-approved stuff you want them to get you seems sort of classless and greedy. Or am I way off? Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for not setting up a college fund for my sister-in-law's newest baby like I did for others? Bro passed leaving Amy and 2 kids behind. I set up a fund for my nieces for college or whatever reasonable path. Then 2 years later, Amy ends up with twins from a one-night stand. I love them and set them both a fund up too since no dad in picture. Then Amy marries John. She always said she was done with kids. So it came to my surprise when they said they were trying, as John wants more kids and doesn't believe in birth control. I am their accountant and can fully say that they can't afford it. John is a disabled child, and just above 55% of his checks go to supported medical bills. A week later, I privately sit down Amy and tell her that I have a family myself now, and I'm managing 6 funds. So I just want to give a heads up that I can't afford to start another one. She protested, saying that she expected the fund to be split between all her children. I explained that's not how it works, and each kid will have roughly the same amount in their funds at 17. Oldest is going to school next fall, and is promised full costs. Amy then points out she has a partial social security so I can shift that money. But I said no, because it's hers. Same applies to all kids. Amy curses, then kicks me out, and goes around telling everyone I'm being cruel and punishing them for being poor. But I never even mentioned her finances. She also said I was favoring bro's kids. Mom yelled at me because I can pay for my wife to lay around at home with a babysitter while willing to punish a kid for just existing. My wife stays at home doing a PhD program with our 2 toddlers, so hence a babysitter 2 times weekly. Turns out Amy is pregnant, and this made everyone hate me more, because I ripped out the security from under her. That I stressed her out, and if the baby is harmed, it's on me. That I am the most well-off, and it wouldn't even sting. Am I the a-hole? I don't want to punish an innocent child, but I don't see why it's on me. I didn't know she was already pregnant and tried to tell her beforehand. But since now it's a reality, everyone is telling me I already hate my future niece/nephew. Edit. The twins are 8 now, so it's not like Amy's just popping out children back to back. She always said she didn't want any more kids, and so I was dumbfounded that she was trying. Mine is like helping fix a roof or something odd. I do not provide financial support to Amy. The funds are not usually talked about. It is because my mom mentioned something when she heard they were trying, and so I talked to her just to make sure, and slickly put in her brain she can't afford a kid without saying it directly. Not today, home. You are an angel for taking care of her twins after your brother passed. It is not on you to provide financial security for her children she cannot fully provide for herself. Right. They're not his/her blood, but it was done anyway. Not today, home. This is a hard one. I can see how this would build resentment, but at the same time, do you really want to finance her next 5 kids? Because if her idiotic husband really doesn't believe in birth control, that's at least the number of kids they'll have. You've been plenty generous. Your brother's kids are one thing. You were kind with the one-night stand twins as they didn't ask to be born. Now she has a new husband, and this is his child, and he should step up. You have 0 responsibility. Not today, Hall. I would make sure sister-in-law has 0 control over the funds. I'm guessing her security is also trying to get monthly stipends from the kids. I fully control the funds, and will be directly paying the fees to whatever tuition or play/path they choose to take. If there's money left over, they will get it after graduation.
Am I the a-hole for telling my ex and his wife that she was the one who was nobody special or important after all? My ex and I broke up 20 years ago when our kids were 3 and 1. The reason was that he made a financially reckless decision, buying a very fancy car that we could not afford, which he took out debt to buy. It put the financial security of our family at risk without telling me. And then he blew up at me for not supporting his decision and wanting him to sell it and pay off the money he borrowed to get it. He told me a real wife would have supported him and screw me for wanting to take away something so special. After our divorce, he had to sell the car anyway, and he blamed me for it. He was nasty to me in every conversation after that, as long as our kids weren't present. He remarried about 2 years after our divorce. He and his wife told me she was the kids' new mom, and that she would be just as important, if not more so than me. More than once they told me I was nobody special or important, and that the kids would have a much better relationship with the new wife. I had to bite my tongue around the kids whenever my ex's wife would be all over them. I hated the 2 of them. This stuff was never said or done in front of our kids. I would walk away, but they carried on speaking, and they'd approach me anywhere at any time, as long as the kids weren't there, to try and claim that I was going to lose my kids to them. The kids ended up hating her and their dad after a while though, and I was never very sad about that. I think they were always going to have to dislike or pull away from me or him, because my ex and his wife would never have accepted both. They always believed she would come out on top over me and would be the favorite mom, and that I would be called my kids' birth mother. When the kids were in their mid-teens, They asked a judge to let them live with me full-time, and that was granted. They had calls and some non-overnight visitation with their dad that they hated, and now both of them are in college and in their 20s, and they have been no contact with both for a couple of years now. I was recently at the opening of a new restaurant in town when my ex and his wife confronted me over the state of their relationship with the kids. Before they could get too nasty with me again, I smiled and told them that it was not my fault they destroyed their relationship with the kids, and they were wrong about the outcome. Then, I decided to be a little petty and gloated that I guess she was the one who was nobody special or important after all, because the kids certainly never called her their mom. I know what I said was petty and that it was rubbing it in. Maybe it makes me as bad as them, or maybe not, but it felt good after years of putting up with so much from them. Does it make me the a-hole? Not the a-hole. You did the right thing by not engaging as the kids grew up. That's probably a part of why you have the relationship with them and their dad doesn't. Kids hear and learn a lot from what is said and what isn't. Now that they're adults, you can speak your mind. In this case, all you said was the truth. If they don't like it, they'll have to learn to deal with it. It was difficult, and I understand why some parents slip or can't do it. My biggest concern was how much it would impact my kids, and it kept me going even when I wanted to scream at the two of them. Not the a-hole. You bit your tongue for 20 years, while they took every cheap shot they could. You had every right to throw it back in their faces. They deserve a lot worse. Plus, kids can be very observant. I guarantee they knew something was off with their father and new wife, and the animosity they had towards you. This probably added to the resentment and subsequent no contact they both have with their father and her. Hope you were able to rebuild a happy life for yourself. They did. At his house, I would be brought up, although never directly in front of my kids. My kids still heard it, because kids will listen in. And I did. This isn't the life I expected, but it's no less fulfilling. My husband left after 7 years of marriage when I got pregnant with a child we were trying to have. He did not even want custody. I never said a bad word about the man to my child, and it got to the point that in the family therapy I took him to, they told me it was hurting him by not agreeing with him in his negative feelings about his dad, because it felt like I wasn't agreeing with his valid and true observations, and the sadnesses he was experiencing because of his abusive butt. So we did our best to turn my ex into a joke and laugh about what we can and console each other for what we can't. I taught parenting and always told parents, you don't need to talk bad about the ex. Children are so much smarter and more emotionally intelligent than we give them credit for. They see it. They know it. There is no hiding from them, and they need to be able to express their feelings safely at all times. Both our husbands did this to themselves. How very tragic for them to not get to love our wonderful kids. Next story. Would I be the a-hole for remarrying my ex, even though I'm going to die? I know this post is morbid and dark, so I apologize for that. I, 36 female, am close to dying. I have terminal cancer and I only have about a year or two left. I've accepted and made my peace with it, and I don't mind openly talking about it. I also have a less than common relationship. My current partner and boyfriend, 38 male, is also my ex-husband. Me and him married right out of high school, stayed together through college, had 3 kids together, 12 male, 11 female, and 4 male. We divorced when our daughter was 3 because of his intense work schedule. It was a lot of heartbreak and pain, but at the time it felt right for both of us, despite that. 2 years after the divorce, I was first diagnosed with cancer, and he reduced his work hours so he could take more time with the kids. And it slowly shifted to him also taking care of me, and we rekindled our romance, but didn't get remarried. I got lucky the first time around and was declared cancer-free at 31. I had my youngest child at 32 and was re-diagnosed at 34. We tried treatments, but it's been recently declared terminal. Please don't feel sorry for me or throw me a pity party. I've gotten to live the life I wanted, and I'm okay with the fact that I'll most likely die before 40. The only thing that causes me any emotional pain is that I won't see my kids grow up and experience life milestones, like graduating, getting married, and having kids. Long backstory, but here's the problem. My partner and I have discussed it, and we want to remarry each other. I want him to be listed as my husband in my obituary. I want him to be able to make medical decisions in case I'm unable to. This one is big for me because of my situation, and so that he can get survivor benefits when I pass. My sister, 38 female, says that it's cruel to remarry him knowing I'm going to die soon, and that if I loved him, I wouldn't have divorced him in the first place, and that by remarrying him, I'm disrespecting the sanctity of marriage by doing it willy-nilly. She also said I probably used my diagnosis the first time around to get his pity love, so he'd get back with me since it resolved the main issue from our divorce. So Reddit, I was wondering if it's really bad for me to remarry my ex? I love this man. We both regretted our divorce and are so grateful that life brought us back together. But now that I'm close to death, we want our love to be legally recognized. If your ex is all in on this, what business is it for your sister to get involved? Exactly. If he's choosing this with full heart, then her sister really has no say. It's their relationship, their choice. And honestly, it sounds like love that's been through hell and back. Not the a-hole. You both are going into this knowing what is happening. I am so sorry. I wish you peace and comfort, and much love from your family and friends. Thank you. That means a lot. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my husband that he isn't in charge in the ER? My husband is still really mad at me for this, and it's been a few days, so I figured I'd bring it here and see what other people have to say. A few days ago, I, female 23, broke my foot by tripping over a really big tree root while gardening. I knew I had broken something when it happened, but I hobbled back inside. I could barely put even a little bit of weight on it, so my husband, 33 male, took me to the ER. For context, my husband isn't the most patient person in the world, and he's kind of nervous around hospitals and doctors, though he'd never admit that. When I was pregnant, he would get nervous just being in the office, and they'd tease him about the feelings of a new dad. But it was really just white coat syndrome, LOL. Anyway, when we were in the ER, he was being expectedly impatient and pacing around. We waited around an hour before I got called back. By then, he was really straining to still be polite. He wasn't rude or anything, but he was just very short with the nurses and other people and didn't say much. When they asked me about my pregnancy status, he interrupted me because of how recently I was pregnant. A couple of minutes later, the nurse asked him to leave. At first he was like, "Why?" And she just said it's standard for a few questions, because they have to give me privacy. He said, "We're married. We don't have or need privacy from each other." She was trying to be really nice and was just like, "It's just standard, sorry." But he wouldn't go until she was like, "I'll literally have to call security if you don't willingly go for like 5 minutes. I eventually said, "You're not in charge in this ER, please go." He was livid, I could tell, but he did go and she asked me really strange questions about my living situation. Everything was fine, and she let him back in. They gave me x-rays and a boot, and we left. Well, my husband was very upset about how the hospital treated us, making us wait and separating a married couple. I know he just hated being there in the first place, and the fact that I said what I said. He hasn't downright said it to me, but he's been so passive-aggressive about being in charge. Generally, I feel like I really do try my best to keep the peace, but I really didn't want security called or anything insane to happen while I was just trying to see if I broke my foot or not. Am I the a-hole for that? He said we are married. We don't have or need privacy from each other. He's been so passive-aggressive about being in charge. I feel like I really do try my best to keep the peace. I really didn't want security called. They believe that you're in an abusive relationship and you don't recognize that you might be. Yes, his past trauma, or whatever it is that makes him nervous about hospitals, is something he needs to work through, possibly with professional help. OP, the fact that he blames you, the nurse, everyone else, that's not good. When you say he's not the most patient person in the world, does that mean he gets angry regularly over small issues? Or angry regularly at anything? Do you feel you have to placate him when this happens? Does it make you nervous? If so, this is a form of abuse. Specifically, emotional abuse. I'm not saying your husband is a bad person, but he may well be someone who uses others to emotionally regulate himself, and that's not fair, and may well become worse when you add children into his life. You are not the a-hole. I am worried about you though. If you think he'd be open to individual therapy, suggest it. Otherwise, start noticing just how often his anger has an impact on you, and if it happens often enough for you to notice, ask yourself if this is the way you and your child want to live. My dad was fairly terrified of hospitals due to some bad childhood experiences as a kid, but if he needed to be there for us, he was there, and he didn't act like a prick. OP's husband is a walking red flag. Your husband gave off the signs of an abuser. The pacing, the irritation, the rudeness, not letting you answer for yourself and refusing to leaving the room are all signs of DV. I think you should really sit with the fact that trained professionals were concerned because of the red flag behavior your husband was exhibiting. You seem to let this roll off nonchalantly and make excuses for him. But you should be thinking about it more. We married. We don't need privacy. Do you see how controlling this is? This is not white coat syndrome. This was a temper tantrum that made the nurse nervous enough to threaten involving the hospital's security. Then he got mad at you. Instead of being apologetic, he blamed you and engaged in passive-aggressive behavior. This man is either extremely immature or he's unable to control his temper. It's probably a combination of both. You need to speak to a therapist. Everything is not okay, and this isn't nervous behavior. Yeah, the "we're married, no privacy" comment really gave me chills too. That's not love, that's control dressed up as concern. Nurses don't threaten security unless the vibes are seriously off. This wasn't just nerves. I hope OP really takes a step back and reflects on how normalized this all sounds to her. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister-in-law I'm no longer helping them with their kids? I, 24 female, have an older brother, 33 male, and his wife, 32 female, who I'll call John and Jill. Jill has an 8-year-old from a one-night stand, and 2 kids with my brother, Liam, 3 male, and Beth, 7-month female. So John decided to start his own business after working as a mechanic for years, and most of the time quitting before having another job lined up, and Jill is now a stay-at-home mom with a part-time 2-day-a-week at a bar. Before their 1 year together, Jill told me that she stopped taking birth control without telling my brother because she was ready for his kids and ended up pregnant with Liam. They lived in a tiny studio-type house with 2 bedrooms and ended up moving into our other brother's house to get more room. To give some background, John has not kept a job longer than a year because of bullying, and Jill just seems to think she's the best out there, but was constantly on her phone and just drama. They are renting from our brother Bill, 34 male, and are at least 3 months behind on rent, has been using Bill's truck and not paying either the monthly or the insurance on it, and just expecting everyone to help them. They even started talking about moving out of state, even though they need a whole team of family to make it work. John is also the type of dad that will leave the kids with other people to do his own thing, and acts like he is being bullied for asking him to actually watch his own kids. They now have Beth and decided to surprise everyone that they are pregnant. I'll be honest, when she told me, I looked her and John in the eye and said, "Are you serious? Is this a joke?" They both said no, that they were pregnant again. I immediately got irritated and told them that I wasn't going to have this conversation with them, and Jill ended up getting upset and going to cry in their car. John refuses to get a vasectomy, Jill doesn't want to get her tubes tied, and they don't like the feel of condoms, so they literally just make a wish that they don't end up with a kid. When Beth was born, they asked me to help out of everyone because, and in John's own words, "You are the only one who doesn't have any responsibilities and can drop everything to help when we need it. Just because I'm single and living at home with my parents doesn't mean I have to help. I pay rent, I have a full-time job, and I have bills just like everyone else this day and age. To be honest, I don't really like kids, and pretty sure that I won't have any of my own. If I wanted to take care of kids at all times for free, I would just find me a dude and have my own." I ended telling them that I can't help anymore. I have bills of my own, and not to text or call me to ask if I can call off work to watch their kids, or give them money, or buy diapers because they can't afford any until that Friday. I never see my money back, and I get stressed out when I get left at their house with the 3 kids until almost 8 p.m. without payment. Edit. John is making enough to skate by monthly with his business, but isn't making enough to pay off debts. He usually works 2 to 4 days a week depending on the weather. since he works outside in landscaping and usually doesn't come home until around 6 to 7 on the days. Jill doesn't work. Not the a-hole. Instead of giving them money or your time, save up to move out or start the process of getting a new higher-paying career. Focus on yourself and your own work-life balance. You probably want to move out soon. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm betting soon they will need to move in with your parents, just for a couple of weeks. We are renovating our house and I'm taking the attic. I'm paying for my area and monthly rent. I told my mom that if she lets them in, then I'm moving out and not coming back. They will never leave. Am I the a-hole for buying off my family home and not giving it back to my uncles and fracturing the family? First time posting here, apologies in advance for any mistakes, but I'm writing this on my phone while on a train. Hello, I am Nath, 29 male, and this is a story about my family on my father's side. A bit of background first. We have always been well off, so to speak. My grandfather founded a flourishing business in the 70s, and he worked in it along with my father and my 2 uncles. Let's call them Mark and Paul. He also built a beautiful villa in the French countryside near the Côte d'Azur, and I spent every summer there, forming some of the fondest memories I have. When my granddad decided to retire in the early 2000s, my uncles decided to cash out of the family enterprise. My dad bought their part of the business, and they went their separate ways. As I said, I used to spend my summers in my granddad's home, and we formed a special bond. I am named after him, the first grandchild. You know how these things go. He was instrumental in shaping me into the person I am today, and I will be forever grateful to him. Back to my uncles. They never married and never settled down, but both fancied themselves excellent entrepreneurs. Spoiler, they weren't. And in 20-odd years, they burned through their money with poor and short-sighted investments. In 2020, when the pandemic hit, they were basically penniless, and they asked my grandfather to move in with him at the villa. Granddad was reluctant, but accepted, because he was getting old and didn't like to rely too much on the home nurse my dad was paying for. So they moved into the villa and started fancying themselves as the owners. Time went on, and my granddad's health got worse. He started to show signs of dementia, and in order to settle his affairs before it was too late, he decided to liquidate his estate. He passed the villa's deed to my uncles. My dad was not part of it because he had received an apartment in the city. Every one of his children and grandchildren received an equal portion of his money, and the rest, the largest part, was put into a fund. The fund is managed by his best friend, a lawyer, who has the duty of liquidating it upon my granddad's death. Granddad never wanted to go to a nursing home, so in exchange for a bigger share of the money after his death, he had my uncles promise to care for him, since they were living in the same house. If they in any way placed him in full-time care elsewhere, like a nursing home or my dad's care, the money would no longer be theirs. The lawyer also had power of attorney regarding my granddad's health. Of course, my uncles started talking about selling the house as soon as they signed the documents, saying that it cost too much. They were spending my granddad's money anyway, and it was too big for the 3 of them alone. They needed the money. That much was clear. My dad even offered to help them in order to keep them in the house, but they refused. So they sold the villa and got a nice fat check. They rented an apartment in Italy and moved there with my granddad, who right now is completely gone due to his dementia, and hired a full-time nurse to help them, whose pay is split equally between them and my dad. The house was sold to a development company which, for reasons unknown, decided not to build over it, but to sell it again. I really don't know why they made that move, but it's not the subject of this post. Ever since moving into the apartment, my uncles have started to complain about how cramped it is. I kid you not, and the financial burden of having to care for my granddad. My dad always gives them money for granddad-related expenses, but they are always asking for more. My siblings and I always make a point to visit at least once a week to help out and keep granddad company. I started working 3 years ago as soon as I graduated and used my share of the money to buy a car and invest in safe stocks. I'm no expert, but one of my best friends is a financial advisor and I rely on him. It hasn't grown exponentially. I'm no millionaire, but I managed to recover the car money and even add a bit to it. Plus, I have my trust fund set up by my dad. It's safe to say that, between family and work, I am comfortable. So, when I saw that the development company was selling the villa again, I started asking myself, well, why the heck not? As I said, I have the fondest memories in that place, and I've always loved its location, close to the Côte d'Azur, but still in a rustic and authentic area. I work remotely, so moving to France is not a problem. For days, it was just a fantasy, until I confided in my dad. He said he would love to see the house back in the family, and even offered to cover part of the cost as a gift. I phoned a couple of contacts I have at various banks, and they offered me pretty reasonable mortgage rates since my dad was available to co-sign with me. I took some time to decide, as this would likely shape the next 20 to 30 years of my life. But I realized that I really did want to keep that place. So I said, okay, let's do it. I decided not to tell my uncles because I wanted it to be a surprise for my granddad in one of his rare moments of lucidity. We signed the documents last March, and the deed became mine. I posted about it on Instagram with a silly caption about having grown up and being a true homeowner now. You know, a stupid joke. My uncles called me like 3 hours after seeing the post. At first, their tone was congratulatory. Good for you for keeping the house in the family and things like that. Then Uncle Mark dropped the bomb. So, when can we move in with Granddad again? I laughed because I genuinely thought it was a joke. Spoiler, it wasn't. Now that the house is back in the family, we can move him again and stay there. The apartment is so cramped. What followed was a very long discussion about how I had a duty to take them into my house because of all the sacrifices they had made for the family. They even played the guilt card, accusing me of not caring about my granddad. I told them, well, let's do this. I'll take only Grandpa into the house, and you're free to do whatever you want. Of course, they wouldn't hear of it. Not because they love Grandpa, they really don't, but because they want his money and know that his lawyer always checks in on things. A couple of days later, they showed up at the house. It's about a 4-hour drive from where they live now, and started berating me. They even tried to get inside, saying I had no right to keep them out of their house. I asked how it was any different from the development company, and they said that I was family, and family is different. They left only after I picked up my phone and dialed the police number. Since then, they've started smearing my name on social media and within the family, telling anyone who will listen that I'm a piece of crap because I'd rather have my demented granddad live in a cramped apartment than in the house he built. People in the family know them very well though, and nobody really trusts them. The uncles even tried to show up at my dad's office, but that backfired. They basically admitted they are running out of money. See, I didn't know this, but they've always had a gambling problem. Back when Granddad held the purse strings, he managed to keep them in check. But since he started to lose his mind, it's gotten worse and worse. My father presented them with the same proposal I did. Let's have Granddad in the villa and continue to pay for the nurse. Again, they flatly refused, accusing him of being after the extra money. My uncles even drafted a legal letter to the lawyer, demanding he order me to let them live in the house. The lawyer laughed in their faces, of course, and told them that moving Granddad into my house would not be a problem, but he had no power to compel me to take them in. Now we're at an impasse. My uncles refuse to let me, my dad, or my siblings see our grandfather, only allowing the lawyer to visit from time to time. They say it's clear we don't care enough. As a consequence, the family is basically split. My dad doesn't speak to them and limits himself to covering the nurse and medical bills. I find myself living in my dream home. I've started renovating it on my own. But at the same time, this new chapter, which should have been a joyful new beginning, is turning somewhat sour. All the beautiful memories of a happy family in that house are tainted by the present, in which that same happy family is now split and bitter. Now for the top comments. Since relationships are already destroyed, can you go to the authorities and your grandfather's power of attorney and file elder abuse charges? They're holding your grandfather hostage and he's no doubt suffering. Adult or senior services can remove grandfather from their apartment and may be legally placed with you or a place of your father's choosing. Get the POA to investigate for mismanagement of funds and have uncles charged too. Good luck. There are talks of involving the authorities. The attorney tells us that from what he can see, and from the reports of the nurse, they are not mistreating him, and that's what matters. But there are talks in place. Not the a-hole. They got what they wanted out of the house. They can't ask for it back, just because they're too dumb when it comes to actually saving money. It's not like they even sold it to you directly. The second they handed it over to the development company, all ties they had to it were severed, even if someone from the family bought it back. At this point, I'd invest in some security features like cameras, if there aren't already some installed. These two may get more desperate to get the house than you'd expect, especially if you begin to successfully pry your grandfather out of their grip. To be safe, I did install some cameras and changed all the locks in case they ever find some old keys. Next story. Am I the a-hole for digging into my sister's fiancé's past without telling her? I'm 34 female, and my younger sister Mia, 26 female, recently got engaged to a guy named Ryan. He's the kind of man everyone immediately trusts, well-spoken, confident, always the center of attention at family events. Everyone adored him, everyone but me. From the moment I met him, something didn't sit right. It wasn't anything obvious. He was polite, smiled at the right times, brought flowers for our mom. But I couldn't shake the feeling that it was all for show. A month after their engagement, I noticed little cracks. He gave different explanations for the same stories. He got cagey when asked about his job, and he once called me the wrong name. Not accidentally. It was like he forgot who I was. Instead of confronting him and risking a blow-up with Mia, I paid someone I know, a former journalist friend who now does private background checks, just to quietly look into his past. What came back floored me. Ryan had changed his legal name 3 years ago. Before that, he'd been engaged to someone else, a woman who filed a restraining order against him after accusing him of stalking and harassment when she tried to leave. There were no criminal charges, and everything was technically closed, but it was enough for me to lose sleep. I waited a week, trying to figure out how to break it to Mia. When I finally told her calmly, with printed documentation in hand, she stared at me like I'd slapped her. She didn't ask questions, didn't even read the file. She just said, "You had no right." She moved out the next day and hasn't returned a single message since. She's still with him. Their wedding is planned for next spring, and now I don't know what to think anymore. So, am I the a-hole for investigating my sister's fiancé without telling her, even though I found out something dangerous? You made a really poor set of assumptions here. Why do you think your sister isn't already aware of the info you found? I wasn't assuming anything. I just wanted her to have all the facts before making a huge decision. I'm trying to be supportive even if it's hard. Hopefully, you've planted a seed of doubt and she'll see him with open eyes. Sometimes people don't want to hear the truth, and sometimes they know and don't care. You've done all you can do. You have to let her make her own choice. You're not an a-hole, but how would you feel if someone did the same to you and a seemingly perfect guy? Give her time. I hope she'll see it too, but it's her choice. If I were in her shoes, I'd be heartbroken. I just wanted to protect her. I'll give her space, but I'll always be here if she needs me. Something similar happened with my BFF's sister. She had a long-distance relationship with some dude. He said he was or had studied at the university I worked at. There were other red flags I can't remember. I looked for his info and he had never registered in any of the campuses. My friend had a talk with her and she was furious with my friend. They didn't speak for over a year. When they finally reconciled, this person has never been mentioned. Have hope. By the way, not the a-hole. Info should have been sent anonymously, not to just your sister, but to family and friends, including yourself. Then see what happened. That'd be great. Then put her sister in a position to have to explain to everyone the entire story she already possibly knew about, and the truth about his crazy ex, and all this wide damage would have been done by her sister behind her back, Couldn't know but a piece of the story. Way to possibly screw up your sister's life with this idea. I considered it, but I wanted to be sure before involving anyone else. I thought going directly to Mia was the best way to protect her, but I see now I could have handled it differently. Last story. Am I the a-hole for not letting my husband relight my daughter's birthday candles for my 3-year-old to blow out? I, 32 female, have seen and read plenty of stories where spoiled kids blow out other kids' candles or throw a fit when they're not allowed to. My husband, 35 male, apparently has not. Friday was my daughter's 10th birthday. On the day of, I make them the food of their choice and a small cake. The party is usually held at a later date. After we ate, we got her cake ready and my 3-year-old was very excited. I had explained to him throughout the day that it was his sister's birthday, not his, so he had to wait for the cake. We lit the candles, sang happy birthday, and she blew out the candles. This might be where I was the a-hole. My husband grabbed the lighter and tried to relight them, so the baby can blow them out too. I said, no, it's our daughter's birthday, and I refused to allow my son to be one of those spoiled kids who can't understand it's not their day. His face fell immediately. He said he was just trying to help and keep the baby happy. We dropped it there. He was kind of quiet the rest of the night. I didn't mean to come off harsh. I just didn't want my daughter to feel like she had to share her day or that it wasn't all about her. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. My mom made me wait until I was 12 to have my ears pierced. She had various vague reasons why. All of my friends had theirs pierced years earlier and wore cute earrings, so for several years, I really looked forward to having mine done. On the day of that big birthday, I got called down to the school office. My mom was picking me up to take me to get my ears pierced. I had hyped it up in my mind for weeks beforehand. Mom had my younger sister, 8, in tow. I didn't think much of it because it was later in the day, and she never let my sister come home to an empty house. Once we got to the place, I found out she had made appointments for both of us. Totally ruined my birthday. Why did I have to wait until I was 12, but she could just get them whenever? Why was it a birthday gift for me and just a freebie for her? I might have forgiven, but that's the kind of thing you don't forget. It also made me resent my sister for a long time, even though, now that I'm an adult, I recognize that it wasn't her fault at all. Good on you for not spoiling your baby. I have pretty much the exact same ear-piercing experience. The joy of finally getting what I had wanted for so long lasted until I realized my mom was helping my sister climb into the chair. My daughters are just about 2 years apart. I made sure my oldest got her special moments solo. The younger one tried kicking up a fuss the first couple of times, and my mom even tried butting in. I threw my own ear-piercing story and a couple of other incidents back at her and told her exactly how that had made me feel in the moment. She was quiet for a minute and said, "What I did to you was wrong, and I'm sorry." I agreed with her. It was wrong, and I held firm so I wouldn't hurt my daughters the same way. Both of my girls had their milestone moments celebrated individually, and they're now in their 30s and incredibly close, unlike my sister and me. I've seen the TikToks where the birthday child gets to blow out their candles and then their younger siblings, and sometimes cousins get to also blow out the candles. You know what I don't see in those videos? The birthday kid smiling. They look so sad and depressed as they watch kid after kid get to blow out the candles on their birthday cake. Kids need to learn it's not their day. They get their own day where only they get to blow out the candles. They need to let others do the same. It's not cute when a younger sibling gets the attention on an older sibling's birthday. It's taking away the specialness of the day from the actual birthday person.